morning, Toledo. And good afternoon, Columbus. And hello to those of you listening on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMare, and I'm here with my erstwhile co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
And together we are going to bring you
Why am I erstwhile?
It's a compliment.
Oh, is it?
Okay. Yeah. You're focused. You're ready to go.
I thought erstwhile meant something like you're a former or something.
No.
Okay.
No, you're right here. You're present.
It's true. I'm here. I'm fairly sure.
And hopefully you folks are all here too and listening to our show about ecology and the environment. And for the next hour, we're going to have a review show. We're going to go back over the past year, but we do have some new material to share with you. And hopefully you've got some new material to share with us. And I'd like to ask people to call in today. 877-909-1007. That's 877-909-1007. And I am actually going to reward the first caller here. We're with $10. We're going to have some, if you want to call in. And in order to earn this $10, though, and you have to follow all the usual rules of the radio station in terms of can't be a minor and can't work for the station and all those things. Just check the website for those details. But you'll need to come on and you'll need to talk to us. And I just want you to share with us a show or a fact or something or anything that you remember from the program over the past year, because it's been quite a year. It's been a real, in terms of ecology, it's been a huge up and down kind of year with some really good information, really good signs and some really bad signs, and terrible disasters and terrific progress.
Excitement, adventure, and really wild things, to quote Douglas Adams.
Yes. It's been quite a year. So give us a call, and the first caller, as I say, will reward you with $10 whole, and appreciate your time. And I appreciate all our listeners, and we've got a whole bunch of them. And in fact, one of the things I wanted to announce is that this past year, and today, of course, is the start of our 4th year of For a Green Future. It was, we are now officially, a thing. If you've been around for 4 years, you get to become a thing. And I did want to say that our podcast on this year passed over 5,000 plays. So over 5,000 times people have listened to episodes of For a Green Future off our Podomatic podcast. And in fact, there are actually more people that have listened to it because it's also plays on other podcasts like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and it plays on other platforms as well. But just on our base platform where we have our podcast stored, Podomatic, there's been over 5,000 plays of our episodes. So thank you so much to those listeners. And so what's going to happen today is we're just going to talk a little bit for the next 10 minutes or so. We're just going to chat, and then we're going to go review our shows over the past year, and hopefully one of these reviews will spark a memory and somebody will call in. And then Rebecca, then we're going to hear from our sponsors and our patrons. Rebecca has some interesting information for us. She's going to talk to us about Colorado, and specifically what are we going to talk about, Rebecca?
This week's installment is entitled. What did I call it? I'm so tired.
Platte. North Platte and South Platte.
The North Platte and the South Platte. Know the difference. Yes. Or at least know what you're doing and where you are when you're doing a radio show. That's also useful.
All right. Okay, and we have a caller. And I want to remind the caller, when you don't hang up after we're done talking, and Josh will get your name and address, and so we can send you our grateful $10. So who do we have on the line?
Try again.
If you're using speakerphone, try switching to non-speakerphone.
Thank you. Okay, can you hear me any better now?
Now I can hear you perfectly. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Turned off the speaker. This is Chris over in Youngstown.
Chris in Youngstown. Hi.
Hi there.
Yeah, hi. How you guys doing today? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Hey, I just wanted to share one of the best programs that I thought was one that you did last week about the buffaloes. That was a fabulous show. and I think it helps us understand more how it is important, so important for us to be conservators of the land and, take charge of animal welfare out there. The buffaloes, I think, are, maybe you can correct me on this, they're a keystone species?
Oh, absolutely they are, right. They change everything about the environment when they live in an environment. Literally just walking along, they create habitat for things like frogs because their footsteps fill in with water, and that provides tiny little micro ponds that frogs could live in. And so, yeah, all sorts of species depend on them. Yes, they're definitely keystone.
My son and I had the privilege of seeing buffalo in South Dakota. We were at, I'm trying to think of the name of the state park there, but it was just a fabulous opportunity to see these majestic beasts, alive and in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and our guest, Stephanie C., who was telling us about the bison, she, her just love and passion and enthusiasm for the bison really comes through and helps make those. Helps anytime she's on. It's a good show. So I'm glad that you really liked that episode.
They're gorgeous critters.
Fabulous. We did go on to her website too. I wanted to just let you know, and that is equally informative and just a wealth of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because she was with the Buffalo Field Campaign for so many years, and actually, I met her when I went to Yellowstone for a week and stayed at the encampment there, where they.
I bet that was awesome.
Oh, that was an incredible experience. Yeah, I mean, literally going out into the 30 degree below weather and just. At the point I was at, they weren't doing any direct action. I mean, at that time, they were blocking. They would put tripods up to block hunters and things like that. And but what I got to do was go with a little team of people to just observe the bison and just watch them.
Wow.
And literally, we spent an entire day just watching this herd of bison, and it was really beautiful and as you say, awe-inspiring. And and living up in that region, up in the high country there in Yellowstone, it was an amazing experience. And so
wonderful.
Well, good. I'm glad that was your favorite episode. And like I say, just hold on a little bit here, and Josh will get your.
Hey, before you sign off,
I
just wanted to say I really enjoy Rebecca's comments too. The kernels of knowledge that she contributes is I really love it. Rebecca, you are the bomb.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Thanks so much again for being on every Sunday. We so look forward to hearing you.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for listening from Youngstown. Appreciate that.
Sure thing.
Okay. All right. That was our caller, and that once Chris is off the line, that will open the line, and so you could join us too at 877-909-1007, or you can text us at 419-973-5841. Either way, we'll get you right on the air.
All right.
So thanks very much for that call. And so now there's just a few things I wanted to talk about before we get to the Chris, it just turns out Chris just donated her $10 back to the show.
Aww.
So that's doubly nice. So but that means there's now $10 available. So our next caller will get that $10. So again, 877-909-1007, and our second caller will receive $10. So it's been quite a week for me this past week. I was, of course, yesterday was interesting. It was because it was New Year's Day. I decided to keep my resolution right away, and I took a nice walk out on the Slippery Elm Trail there, walked for about an hour and a half. And I had two experiences that I kind of wanted to share with you because it kind of sort of emblematic of what's going on in the world right now. One is I was walking, a guy was walking the opposite direction, and I said, "Good, Happy New Year." And he said, "Wow, it sure has turned cold, hasn't it?" And I don't know if you all remember back to yesterday, but it was 40 degrees.
I remember it's
yesterday.
very chilly.
Well,
Gotta take puppy outside.
Well, but 40 degrees on January 1st is actually not chilly.
True.
Yeah.
It's cold compared to how it has been lately.
Exactly. And you know, in reality, 40 degrees is 10 degrees above average.
It certainly seems colder when it's seesawing back and forth in a crazy way.
Right.
A couple times it's done all this already this year.
Right. And that's an important thing to remember when you're thinking about something like climate change, is that we are easily influenced by our environment. You know, the temperature drops a few degrees, we think it's cold, even if that's way above normal temperature for that time of the year. And I mean, look out right now, you know, there's actual snow on the ground, and it gets hard to remember that we're stuck in this global warming situation. And that's just the nature. You know, it's just human nature. I mean, everybody does that to some degree.
I walked in without my coat from the station to the parking place into the station because it's big, it's heavy. I have to take it on and off. You know, I figured just leaving the car because it's not that bad.
Yeah. So just a reminder that, you know, it might seem like things are getting colder and back to normal, but you have to look at the long-term picture. So I was kind of, you know, after I ran into this guy, I was a little bit down because I was like, no, it's not that cold. It's 40 degrees out here on the 1st of January. And then I saw this nice family, and it was sort of an extended family. There was a grandma, looked like, and a father and a mother, and they had a little toddler on a little bike with a couple dogs. And I said, oh, that's nice. I wished them a Happy New Year. And they wished me a Happy New Year. And then I stepped out into the parking lot because this was they were just getting on the trail. They were just starting, and I was just leaving. And lo and behold, I saw they drove up in a Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid. And I was just like,
oh,
all right.
Soulmates of
There we
Joe's.
are. That's nice. That somebody's actually using, you know, actually went and made the purchase of a plug-in hybrid car. And so I knew that driving to the trail to go for their walk, they probably didn't burn any gasoline, because a short trip like that in a plug-in hybrid is going to be all electric. And so that really perked up my spirits. And I do have to say, I've been doing a fair bit of traveling the past week or two.
Very true.
As you know, last week I actually broadcast from Denver because I visited my sons out there for Christmas. And I have been seeing a whole bunch of hybrids and plug-in hybrids, and the people are really making the switch now.
Cool, good.
Now that they're still in the minority, you know, it's still not fast enough. I mean, in literally almost every car.
Well, Denver's a trendy place. I mean, Toledo, part of its charm and also its annoying quality is that it tends to retain its own character over time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
to put it politely.
So that basically tends to like follow other cities by like about a decade.
There you go. By the time it reaches Toledo, it's pretty much out of fashion. You can count on it.
Well, in Denver anyway, and in Chicago too, because I had I'll stay in Chicago. Lots and lots of plug-in cars, lots of hybrids. I also have to say, lots of masks. I gotta say, it was over 90% of people in public in both those cities were wearing masks. And
I've been talking to my uncle in Massachusetts, and he's like, "Oh my God, we know somebody who came down with COVID." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know like 3 people in Toledo and a bunch of people on Facebook who have it already."
Right.
I've had at least once. It turns out we didn't find out till like a year later though that I'd had it.
Yeah, because people around here, when I go out, you know, and 90% of the people are unmasked.
Yep.
And it's, you know, don't go with the crowd when the crowd is wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important distinction, you know. I mean, sometimes the crowd is right. You can go with the crowd and just be like everybody else, like in Chicago and Denver, you know. But here, the main crowd is going without masks, which is just insane. And as we know, you know, all the hospitals are filling up, and the death rate is going up. And although the death rate's not going up as fast as the infection rate, which is a really good sign, it does kind of support this idea that the new variant, the Omicron variant, even though it'll make you sick, it's much less likely to kill you, which is great news. But still, no sense in risking the disease. Wear your masks, folks.
In addition to at least two ancestors that I know of who died in the 1918 or 1916 flu epidemic?
Yeah, 1819.
Yeah, I had two of those that have been documented by family stories, or one by a news article, I think. And then my maternal grandmother had tuberculosis right before they discovered a cure. And so she was one of the first people who had it. She had it for years. She was away from her children in the hospital, and they my mom and my uncle both remember going to the parking lot and waving up at her for a year when they were teenagers.
Right.
And for the rest of her life, it apparently it damaged her lungs, or at least she thought it had. So she wore a mask a lot of the time outdoors, and yeah, that was hard for me during the beginning of the pandemic because I still had my hair long too and up in a bun. So every time I looked in the mirror, I'd see my grandmother with the weird hair in the mask. I was like,
I'm sorry.
Hair.
Yeah, that's terrible. When we all, when we realize, oh no.
Yeah.
Not just turning into your parents, turning into your grandparents.
Yeah.
That's really scary. But hopefully that's something that we all get to. It's a good thing if you can get to that point.
She was sort of an unpredictable person too, which tended to upset my mother. So she's not the person. I don't know, who do I want to look like in my family? I can't. I'd have to think that over.
Yeah. Well,
even my sister, she looks like halfway between me and that Liv Tyler character.
So, on the way back from Colorado, I did also have an experience I wanted to share with you folks because I actually took the train. Hooray! Finally, I managed to make one of these
trains are great.
Trips on a train, and it was great.
All nice and relaxing.
Yes, there was some problems.
Legroom.
The train actually between California, it's a California Zephyr, and between California and Denver, it got stuck in the mountains.
Oopsie.
By all that snow, because they had that tremendous snowstorm there.
Well, we hear there were 20 million delays on the airline, so whatever.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It's the same weekend.
Right, I wouldn't have done any better
we could get anywhere on the airline.
On an airplane. And in fact, the experience would have been worse because what happened is the train was 15 hours late. And so what happened is, of course, I missed the connection in Chicago. And they put us up at a 4-star hotel.
Ooh.
Yes, the Swiss Hotel. And it was just, it was it was a luxury hotel. It was incredible. And I'm going to post a picture on my YouTube version. I had a view of Navy Pier and Lake Michigan that literally...
I've been to Navy Pier. I went on the big Ferris wheel. Yeah,
I could see the Ferris wheel from my hotel room. Literally could not have had a better view of Navy Pier and Lake Michigan in the city of Chicago. And they gave us a free meal in the dining car. Although one thing I discovered is that we had a fella, speaking of going back over past shows, we had a fella on who was talking about Amtrak last year, and he mentioned this, and I actually saw it in action, is that the fellow that Trump appointed to run Amtrak has decided to turn it into a luxury mode of transportation and divide people up into haves and have-nots. And the way they're doing this is the haves buy the sleeper car, which they have increased the price of the sleeper car. My ticket and coach was $200, which is very reasonable to travel between Denver and Toledo. But had I taken the sleeper car, I would have paid at least $1,200.
And here is the thing, that the size of a glorified walk-in closet. Nobody even who has the money is going to want to pay that for that.
Well, they've gotten bigger. That's part of it, is they increased the size of the sleeper car. And once you get in a sleeper car, now you have like a personal valet who waits upon you, and you have access to the dining car. Coach people normally we're relegated now to the snack car.
Oh, okay.
So you can't eat in the dining car unless you...
Why not? You got money.
I know, because...
Just to deprive people of something, okay.
Just to create this two-tiered, wealthy get over here, they get all the perks and the dining car, and everybody else goes over there. But
Do
because
wealthy people actually want to go on Amtrak?
there were a fair number,
Okay.
and in fact, it was whole families that were traveling, and it was, But
It sounds cool. It's like, imagine the hotel room you could get for $1,000.
yeah,
You know?
I know.
It would be something much, much fancier than an Amtrak cabin.
True, but it was still the train, and so it was vastly superior to the plane in terms of comfort. I could stretch out, and actually, because there were so few people because of the delay, I actually had like almost a whole car to myself on the way from Denver to Chicago. It was
So it's
nice.
like you had your fancy cabin.
It was.
Just about.
I could pretend that it was all mine because there was nobody nearby. But it was still, and the people on the train, my experience, people on the train are friendlier and less uptight.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's
people
much
on
more,
airplanes so angry.
Yeah, they're angry
so
all the
angry.
time. Yeah, I think maybe it's that little bit of guilt. They know that I really shouldn't be putting this much carbon in the air. Maybe that's back behind them. But for me, but taking the train,
I've lived in subsidized housing, and for a couple times the drug apartment in the building was right next to mine. I knew because people kept knocking on my door and then looking apologetic and leaving when I opened.
Okay, and
So, yeah, and much less frightening than people on airplanes.
yeah, when people get going on an airplane, it's really scary.
Nobody's that angry.
But the staff on the train kept like thanking everybody for being so understanding, and we were all just like, yeah, we understand, no problems. It's much easier to be laid back on a train than it is to be on a plane. And the conversations are better. I've always found that people are much more willing to talk on the train. I've had some wonderful conversations with complete strangers, and it's just been, it was a really, really nice trip. And just saying again, whenever you can, take the train.
On the plane, it's like
the
guy in front of you and in back of you both hate you because he wants to lean back and you want to lean back, and the other person doesn't want them to do this, and the other person hates you because the window seat hates you because they have to crawl over you and vice versa to get out, and the person on the outside hates you because everybody has to go to the bathroom and crawl over them, and the guy in the middle seat just hates life,
right?
And everyone.
Well, and there is no middle seat on the train.
Yeah,
it's just two seats, and,
right?
And lots.
You got the
lots
aisle,
of room.
or you got a window seat.
Yeah, it's nice. So, all right, so that was pleasant, and actually, it turns out we've been talking so long, I don't have time to do what we had planned to do, which is go back over all the shows of 2021. I will just say a few things.
But they're available on podcast.
They are absolutely available on podcast. Just search for A Green Future, and we
do your own review show. We
Yeah,
encourage that.
We're the first ones to pop up. So, and still time though for that second call, for which people will be given $10. So just a quick recap. Just some things I wanted to mention. One, of course, our first show last year, we were talking about the attack on the Capitol, which is, still a current topic because of what we're finding out about it, how it looks like this was just literally a planned insurrection, an attempted coup, organized at the highest levels by a person who was proved himself to be dedicated to wiping out the environment, because all through Trump's administration, just tons and tons of attacks on the environment on every front. And there's still attacks on the environment, but the pace has slowed under
January
under Biden.
6th upset our dog a great deal. He could tell we were frightened when we were watching TV, and therefore he demanded that I sit on the arm of his mom's lounger so he could sit in her lap and we could all be around him. He's very upset by our habit in general of sitting on separate pieces of furniture, which is not what a proper wolf does.
Right, yeah, the pack is supposed to be
so
in a
he was
pile.
all, okay, you people get it together and be a pack and protect each other.
Right.
So we had to do that, or he wouldn't just bark his head off forever.
Well, so that was an interesting show to start the year with. Luckily, we're not doing anything that dramatic this year.
Yes.
But some of the other things we did through the year, stories we followed, were the Line 3 in Michigan or in Minnesota, Line 3 in Minnesota controversy. We had people on from the GNU Collective, and we had E. Joseph Oppengard Peltier III several times talking about that. One of the guests I was very proud to have on back last January was Mark Jacobson, and he is a Stanford scientist who has just literally just laid out, here's the roadmap, here's how you get to 100% renewable energy, no nukes, no coal, and you can do it by 2030. And he was an amazing guest that has been, since he was on our show, he's been on all kinds of national news programs like Nightline and things like that. But we had him here back in January. It was a whole bunch of anniversaries in 2021. It was the 35th or the 10th anniversary of Fukushima. It was the 35th anniversary of Chernobyl. It was the 5th anniversary of the Standing Rock occupation, where they were trying to stop the Axis pipeline over there in North Dakota. And we marked all those anniversaries with special shows. We also had a show on where we were talking with Diane DeRigo. She's been from NIRS, Nuclear Information Resource Services. Yeah, she was on several times.
Maybe that was past years I'm conflating.
No, and it was her 35th anniversary, too. 35th anniversary of fighting nuclear power.
Cool.
So she's a frequent guest that we'd love to have on. Another thing that we did in 2021 was we created our most popular podcast upload. I'm going to ask Josh to play that now. And this, you might remember this from, we played this right around the Chernobyl anniversary. Ready, Josh? All right, let's hear it.
Welcome to the show. If you could just share with us your name and position.
My name is Thomas Taylor. I am the resident inspector at Fermi Nuclear Power Plant for the NRC.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Thomas. Now, the reason I wanted to ask you on is because, as we know, Fermi 2 is shut down right now because of some problems, unexpected problems. Isn't that right?
It was an unplanned shutdown, but I can assure you there is no danger to the general public.
Okay, well, that's reassuring. But what I'd like to ask is, it's been publicly reported that a valve malfunctioned. Could you tell me what valve malfunctioned? Where is it?
I can't share that information with you, but I can tell you that there's no danger to the general public.
Okay, yeah, I think we've established that. But tell me, could you just tell me, was this valve before the generators, or after the generators, or before the condensers, or after the condensers?
I can't tell you that, but I can once again assure you that there's no danger to the general public.
Yeah, I get the, I get that. Okay, thank you. We'll just take that as a given. Let's try this from another angle. You, as resident inspector, you are actually physically on the site, right? You're physically present there at Fermi 2 Nuclear Power Plant.
Yes, I am, and I can tell you from my vantage point in the control room that there is no danger to the general public. In fact, they are starting the process of booting the plant back up as we speak, and as I like to point out, there's no danger in this process for the general public. It's purely routine.
Okay, is that a siren? Some sort of alarm I hear in the background?
Sometimes there are alarms when you're restarting a nuclear power plant. It's a very complex, big piece of machinery, but there's no danger to the general public.
You can close that vent.
It
seems like I'm hearing some voices in the background there.
Yes, there are some of our engineers are having a discussion, but there's no danger to the general public.
Just got to keep pumping the water in, okay? Increase the feed water pumps, all right? Bring on the auxiliary feed water pumps now.
Mr. Taylor, I'm no expert, but I just heard somebody talking about auxiliary feed water pumps. That doesn't sound very good.
Doing all right.
What exactly is going on there?
All right, we're just barely holding our own.
I'm sorry, I have to do a little bit of overseeing in my role as on-site inspector, I'm going to have to end this conversation. Thank you very much, and just let me reassure you that there is no danger to the general public. All right, what have we got? What's the main main pressure reading? 70 atmospheres. 70 atmospheres. Oh my God! Reopen the vents. Reopen them now. But it's not responding. I think the pressure's gotten too high to reopen the vents. All right. Well, we need somebody to try to get down there and try to reopen it manually. All right. I'll go. All right, go. Good luck. We're gonna have to call the president. Forget the president. We're gonna have to call Bill Gates. Wait, what's that? Get a wrench on it now!
Okay, and that is our scariest and most popular podcast recording right now.
One where Joe went all Orson Welles on us.
And interestingly enough, though, just a few weeks later, we had Kevin Camps from Beyond Nuclear on because Davis Bessie had a near miss, which actually sounded very much like what we just heard, with auxiliary pumps getting put in and pressure valves going high, and it was kind of scary that it was sort of a foreshadowing of something that actually happened. It's just a reminder that every nuke plant, every minute that they're operating, something like that is a real possibility. And they used to tell us that nuke plants can't melt down, back before Fukushima and before they admitted that 3 Mile Island actually had melted down. They went a good 20 years there with we actually had a partial meltdown at 3 Mile Island, and the official line was nuke plants can't melt down, even though it had already happened. So that was just one little highlight from last year. Just one other thing I wanted to mention about the past year, story that we covered that has not yet made the big time, has not yet been picked up by the mainstream media, although many of our stories, if you're a regular listener, we're like a couple months and some, maybe 6 months, we're usually out ahead of the mainstream media on some of these biggest stories. But there was one that I mentioned in Ecological News segment that the Earth's albedo is declining. In other words, there is a less of the energy that the sun is shining on the Earth, less of it is getting reflected back out into space, which means it's being absorbed by the planet, which means that is going to, again, exacerbate global warming. It's in that positive feedback loop that we talk about so much. And when I was going back and looking at this story, I was talking about how a group of researchers used the moon to determine that the Earth's albedo was declining, that we were reflecting less back out into space. Because what happens is, of course, the Earth reflects light onto the moon, that reflects it back onto the Earth again. And so if you measure the moon's reflections, you can tell what is happening on the Earth. And in researching that one and doing my little Google search to look at that story again, I discovered that way back in 2005, NASA had put out a story saying that the Earth's albedo was declining and declining regularly. Then about 10 years later, they put out another story saying, we're not sure if it's going down or not. It looks like it's going up and down, but we can't really say for sure that it's going down again. But then and then nothing for about 10 more years. And then this year, after these other independent researchers say, yes, albedo's declining, NASA came back on and said, oh, yeah, it is. We know that now. It's declining. In other words, it's kind of like they saw it happening. Somebody said, hey, you can't say that's happening. So they shut up about it. And then, but once somebody else said it's definitely declining and we're screwed, then they came back and said, oh, yeah, we know that. We've got that information, too. So
our air conditioner broke during the heat wave this year.
Oh, yeah?
If it had some friends that not bought us another one, we probably would be a statistic.
Could be.
We're not in great health, and neither is our dog.
Right. Well, so that's our look at the past year, and we're actually racing through this hour much more quickly than I thought. So it's time now to talk about our advertisers and sponsors. Yay! Four Green Features brought to you by the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain quality green spaces, provide engaging programming, and they teach people to love and respect nature. They restore wildlife habitats, and they lead people on outdoor adventures. The Wood County Parks protects natural spaces in Wood County for all to enjoy, from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every day of the year. And there's several ways to get a hold of them. One is you can call them at 419-353-1897. That's 419-353-1897. You can also go to their website, wcparks.org. And they have a nifty app that you can download from any app store. Just search for WC Parks. And, of course, they're on all the social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just search for WC Parks for the Wood County Park District. And Four Green Futures also brought to you by our patrons. And our patrons are wonderful people who love the earth and know the value of protecting the environment and helping to get the word out so that we can protect the environment. And they're folks that went to patreon.com, Patreon, searched for Four Green Future, up popped our page on Patreon, and they chose a membership level that they could afford. You know, we don't want anybody to donate more than they can afford, but definitely we would like people to donate what they can afford. So now every month a little tiny bit comes out of their checking account, comes over to us, and that's how we can afford to keep this show on the air. And if you're somebody who is casting about for a New Year's resolution, you know, some way to improve yourself and maybe the world around you, consider becoming a patron of For a Green Future, you know, and then you could feel smug. You'd be allowed to feel smug when you listen to this program if you become a patron. Okay, so now it's time for us to move on. And Rebecca, I believe you have some rivers to talk to us about.
I do. The Platte River, the North Platte versus the South Platte, know the difference, which originated because at one point a few years ago, I had a friend going to school in Laramie, Wyoming at UW, and so I made the trip there and back a couple times. You know, I'd sort of fly out and then take a car back or vice versa a lot. And it seemed like once you cross the Mississippi, I lost track of how many times we crossed the Platte on the freeway on the way to Laramie. And still, like, we used to go up into the Rockies for, you know, the hot springs, little towns, and we went to Fort Collins. It seems like the Platte is just everywhere. You know, it's probably an exaggeration, but it seems like you somehow cross it every 5 or 10 miles, no matter where you go west of the Mississippi. This is the impression. It's probably not literally that bad, but yeah. So I got the impression that it was a very long, twisty river, which is odd because it's also really kind of shallow and slow. Mm-hmm. It's only navigable by kayak, rubber boat, or canoe, basically, little rubber floaty rafts. Yeah. You can't really get anywhere on the Platte in a big boat at all, but it's important. It's an important water source for starters.
Oh yeah, it is. It's an amazingly arid area. It's a surprise to see this river flowing through it, but yeah.
I remember that, yeah. And so in addition to numerous forks, that's the thing, besides the Platte and the North Platte and the South Platte, there's other Plattes. Too numerous to mention. But I thought I would just try to straighten out the South Platte and the North Platte. I believe they are the two principal tributaries of the Platte River. The South Platte flows through Colorado and Nebraska, and I believe it also crosses Wyoming. It's 439 miles long, goes close to Boulder, where excitement has been happening lately. Also Denver and sort of close to Cheyenne. It goes through Denver, sort of close to Cheyenne, which you pass a lot on the way to Laramie. And it is a gold medal trout river, which drains a big stretch of the eastern flank of the Rockies, also known as the Colorado Front Range and the Eastern Plains. Joins the North Platte in Nebraska. I previously talked about the Flat River. That's in Michigan. There's also Platte River in Michigan. So many Platte Rivers. Right. In Nebraska, it flows into the Missouri and then ceases to trouble us largely. Actually, it takes the Missouri to the Mississippi all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So
it drains into the Gulf. Wow, okay.
Yeah, if you had your little canoe loaded up with some trade goods, you could, go a long way on that. So, yeah, it's the primary water source for eastern Colorado. And I still feel that I still feel that it should be called. There should be T-shirts saying "I sat in the Platte." Part of my goal here was I wanted to figure out which Platte I sat in when I was in Saratoga. I really love hot springs because I have crazy amounts of arthritis and they make me feel not miserable for like several hours afterwards. It's really cool. So yeah. The South Platte apparently, to add to the confusion, there are two Centennial Colorados, one of which is completely fictional, invented by James Michener in his 1970 novel Centennial, which is located near the Platte and the Powder in Weld County. Is it the Powder? The Powder, P-O-U-D-R-E. I think it's the Powder River.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right.
Which sounds like a contradiction for starters. But yeah, that is located near the South Platte, and there's an actual Centennial Colorado, which is in a totally different place, located by a bunch of creeks, but not near the Platte or any other river.
Okay.
So that's confusing. And the North Platte is the one I sat in. It runs through Saratoga. I think there should be T-shirts about that. I sat in the Platte. It was nice and warm, too. It was summer, and it was near the hot springs, so all the hot water was in there, and you could wade pretty much all the way out in it,
Mm-hmm.
So that was nice.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, so also a major tributary to the Platte, as opposed to the North or the South Platte or any of the forks. The North Platte is 716 miles long, but it only travels 550 miles because very twisty.
That supports your windy.
It takes it
impression.
716 miles to go 550 miles through Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska. Its sources at something called the Little Grizzly Creek, where the Little Grizzly joins the Grizzly. And some of its other tributaries are the Sweetwater, the Medicine Bow, and Laramie rivers, which I've also been in the Laramie River because it's in Laramie, and there's something called the swimming hole, which is actually made by, it's a little kind of pond on the Laramie made by beavers.
Oh,
so you can kind of swim with beavers free of charge. No guarantee of interaction. You probably don't want that anyway. I just remember it was freezing in the water, but it was so hot that like the parts of you that were above the water instantly got really, really warm again. So that was just an interesting experience. It goes to the town of Casper, among other things. It drains northern Colorado, eastern Wyoming, and western Nebraska. And pretty much what I said.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, thanks for that. And unusually now your little segment is going to segue perfectly right into our ecological news segment.
Wow!
Because
synchronicity.
Because you mentioned your friend there. You actually have several friends there in Colorado,
right,
that have been affected by these terrible climate change induced storms and fires that are going on there.
Yeah, well, okay, I know a few people. I noticed people were marking themselves safe who I didn't even know where they lived necessarily, you know. But yeah, my friend Hannah has a bird sanctuary up there. She just had to buy big smoke scrubbers, apparently, because she deals with parrots and cockatoos and little exotic birds that she rescues who were bought by people who did not understand what they were getting into with an exotic bird.
Yeah.
Especially cockatoos. I've known some cockatoos. They're very loud and clingy. And the lungs of parrots and things are very delicate, so I can see that. So she's doing all right. My friend Gwen, who I've knew from like 2000, she was living in Toledo. She works in like some kind of park. I don't know, park doing education about nature for kids, and her house is pretty much particulates now. The house she was renting and hoping to rent to own.
Oh, it's burned to the ground.
Yeah, it's just gone. Basically, she has not had the courage to go back and see it yet. It's pretty traumatic, I guess. They're staying in a hotel or somebody's house or something. She managed to grab really just the car keys and a quilt that her mother made. That's all they have of all of their possessions. She said something about like the doggy daycare or the place where they were boarding their dogs having a lot of trouble or something. So I hope her dog is okay. I'm not sure whether that means that her dog might not have made it or not.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and this tragedy was just so quick, and so.
Yeah, she said they had no time. Like, started really close to their house. I don't know. The doggy daycare is in Superior, so.
Okay, so they might have had a few minutes to take care of the dogs.
Really, they just kind of left breakfast on the table and skedaddled.
Well, let's hope her dogs were okay, even though she lost all her
really hoping
possessions. Yeah. So and just a reminder that none of us are safe. These global warming catastrophes can happen anywhere, anytime.
Well, if you're near water, you got flooding. If you're not near water, you have fire that you're worried about.
Right. Both droughts and floods are increasing because of global warming. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, there's some sad news, and my boys were unaffected except for the smoke. They could see the smoke. My son sent me a picture from the parking lot of the Costco where he works, and it's just this amazing cloud of intense smoke. And
I heard, like in California, a couple times the fires have gotten right up to the beach a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of, you're not really safe there either.
Right.
Unless you can get to the beach and get in the water and then hope it's not flooding or tsunamiing or something crazy.
But my boys have reported that now, in the last 24 hours, something like 8 inches of snow have fallen. So that should have put the fires out.
And so far, they're saying 3 people are missing after the fires and the snow. So
yeah, I think that's the number.
So far, no humans dead. Gwen mentioned something about she was hoping the neighborhood coyotes made it up to the mesa, which didn't burn.
Yeah, I heard coyotes. When I was visiting my sons, there's a neighborhood park, and obviously there's coyotes living in that park, feeding on the geese and things.
Right.
So a lot of coyotes around there, and they're pretty smart. Coyotes.
A lot of people have an issue with geese, so they should be happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a problem with any of these animals, just there's a predator that will eat them. Just let that predator come back, and problem solved. All right. Well, our hearts go out to the people of Colorado, and let's hope that they don't have to suffer any more climate catastrophes this year. All right. Well, we're racing right along, although we do have time for that second call if someone wants to call in at 877-909-1007. Just a couple bits of news. I wanted to end the program with some good news, and Al Jazeera has kindly obliged because they have a story called The 5 Good News Environmental Stories from 2021.
All right.
So if you want to check all of those out to get cheered up, there's a couple I wanted to mention. One is that their lead good news story is that the ozone layer is healing. There's if you're an environmentalist from back in the 80s, you'll remember that the big thing back then was the hole in the ozone layer. because there were whole classes of chemicals called CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, right? Try that one 10 times fast. That were used as propellants and as in aerosol cans and as refrigerants because they were, chemically they were very mild, and everybody thought, oh, what a wonderful chemical. Turns out that once it got up into the upper atmosphere, it literally destroyed the ozone layer, and the ozone layer protects all of us from ultraviolet radiation.
Nice and harmless unless you're an ozone molecule.
Right, or dependent on
or
ozone
somebody
molecules.
Who needs them, yeah.
Right, to protect you from ultraviolet radiation.
Unless you're life on Earth, they're great.
Yeah, and ultraviolet radiation is why Mars is pretty much lifeless, because nothing is blocking the ultraviolet radiation from the sun. So even though they're farther from the sun, it's getting sterilized all the time by the solar radiation. And if our ozone layer disappeared, we would get sterilized by the solar radiation, because growing living things, biological organisms, just can't handle ultraviolet radiation.
Yeah.
But what they're saying is that it's been healing steadily. It regains 1 to 3% every 10 years. So another 30 years or so, it should be gone. But that's a good news story, because it was a huge coming together of all the different countries of the world signing treaties and agreeing to get rid of the CFCs, and it worked, So now Al Gore was hoping that would serve as the model for what would happen with greenhouse gases. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked, largely because the big corporations have decided, we would rather broil the earth than cut down on our profits. But as I said, I'm trying to finish the year with upbeat, good news stories. And the other really cute story that Al Jazeera reported on is that the giant panda in China has shifted from being endangered to being threatened. So, in other words, the giant pandas are making a comeback. And
I'd just like to put in a plug here for red pandas, which I think are cuter. Also more common. You can find them more places.
Oh, that's a hard one. Which is
They got
cuter?
them in the Toledo Zoo.
Red pandas or giant pandas?
They're all playful and stuff, and they look like little fox bears.
Yeah, but giant pandas have that big round head. What could be cuter than that? It's like...
They don't do anything, Joe. They just sit there and chew bamboo.
They roll around. I've seen them rolling around.
That's true. I've never seen actual pandas in person, just red pandas.
Yeah. So you're biased.
That's true. Yeah, I like
All
them.
right. Well,
they're red too. I just want to point that out.
They're coming back because China made the commitment to make them come back, to help them come back. And so what they've done is set aside about 18% of the area where the giant pandas live as protected reserves. And one of the most important aspects is they connected all the different parts of those reserves so that the pandas can travel between them. I mean, here we have a tendency to make these little isolated islands of this population or that population, and that long term doesn't work. But China recognized that they needed to have them all able to access each other to keep themselves genetically healthy, and they have. So that's some good news to end on. And, more good news that we're starting our 4th year here. Thanks for sticking with us. Love having you this show. Love having you listen. Thanks so much. This is Joe DeMare.
And Rebecca Wood.
And we are signing off. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more 3-headed frogs or kids with leukemia.